With a few months to go until Rage 2's release, Gaming Trend recently got the chance to try out a pre-release demo. While we weren't able to record any video of the session, we were provided with some never-before-seen footage, so I wanted to show you some of the most interesting things we learned about the game. Keep in mind, anything you see or hear in this video is subject to change before release. As you may have heard, Rage 2 picks up 30 years after the events of Rage. You play as a character named Walker, and you'll be able to choose whether they're a male or female at the start of the game. As Rage 2 kicks off, your town is destroyed by the Authority, the tyrannical pseudo-government that you supposedly defeated in the first game. id Studio director Tim Willits assured us that even if you haven't played the first game, you won't be missing anything by starting with Rage 2. That doesn't mean that nothing from the first game carries over, though. The demo that we played started in Wellspring, a shantytown in the first game that's grown into the closest thing the Wasteland has to a metropolis by now. And the first friendly face we saw that wasn't trying to kill us, aside from this grumpy guard, is Lusum Hagar, a returning character from Rage. Okay, she is trying to kill us, but only at first. She set us off on a mission, which we won't spoil here, but which took us to two more elements returning from Rage: the arena combat game Mutant Bash TV and derby racing. Which brings us to what you actually want to hear about: combat. As you would expect from the studio that basically invented the first-person shooter, gunplay felt great in the demo. Weapons ranged from your typical assault rifle and shotgun to heavier artillery like rocket launchers and plasma cannons. But even with weapons you've probably seen before, Rage 2 adds a lot of versatility by giving them alternate fire modes. While holding down the left trigger or right mouse button with the assault rifle gives you iron sight aiming, with the shotgun, it lets you shoot concussive blasts that knock your enemies back, or gives your shots homing capabilities with the rocket launcher. There are also more exotic weapons, like a handgun that sets enemies on fire, or the grav dart, which lets you lasso enemies or objects and launch them in whatever direction you want. And that's not even mentioning the secondary items you can pick up, which include grenades, auto turrets, and wing sticks, a kind of deadly three-pronged boomerang carried over from the first game. Given that the original Rage also featured things like deployable walking turrets and ammo that let you remote control enemies, I wouldn't be surprised to see some more inventive tools added later. Even with just those weapons, you have plenty of ways to cause chaos, but on top of those, you also have abilities that you charge up by taking out enemies. Your dash lets you get out of danger or back into it quickly. With Shatter, you can high-five the air in front of you to send out a kinetic blast, knocking enemies away. Vortex gathers enemies and objects to a central point, then shoots them up like a geyser. Slam lets you launch into the air and crash back down, damaging and throwing anything near the point of impact. The higher up you are when you use it, the more devastating it'll be. Barrier may not be as exciting as the others, but it'll still save you in a pinch. The best part about these abilities is how they combo together. The most obvious example, and one that's a lot of fun, is launching yourself into the air with Vortex and slamming back down for massive damage. Once I started to get the hang of my abilities, combat was a blast. It's fast and hectic, with well-armed enemies attacking you from every angle, but there seems to be a tool for every situation, if you can just remember it in time. Your weapons and skills let you put yourself and your enemies exactly where you want on the battlefield, and judging from the video it provided, you'll be able to completely dominate things if you're a more skilled player than I am. There are plenty of ways to improvise with even the most basic tools you have. Combat is clearly the highlight here. It feels, well, exactly how you'd want the next id game to feel, and I can't wait to see how wild things get in the final version. I also got behind the wheel of some of Rage 2's vehicles. Driving didn't feel quite as smooth as combat yet, but it's still fun to zip around and cause chaos on the roads. While you're taking the vehicles for a spin, you can take on massive convoys that make their way around the map, and which wasted no time swatting me away like a gnat every time I got too close. You can also tackle enemy encampments, from power facilities and gas stations to whole elevated towns, in order to get on the good side of various NPCs who can then sell you upgrades. I didn't get to dive too deep into the upgrade trees, but there's a huge variety of skills spread across 4 distinct trees, each with their own branching paths to explore. But for a game with so much driving through the desert, the vehicles I got to try seemed to struggle with the rocky terrain, and I spent a lot of time trying to wedge myself off of rocks that seemed like they should be no problem to drive over. To be fair, I'm not the world's best driver, and Rage 2 will also feature vehicles much more suited to the conditions, like a monster truck. Or, if you want to avoid the roads entirely, a gyrocopter. It looks like it'll make flying through Rage 2's vast open world a lot easier. And vast it is. I only saw a tiny portion of the map during my demo and almost exclusively stayed in the desert. The game also includes swamp and forest biomes with their own specific inhabitants to rough up, which I only caught the barest glimpses of in the demo. To get the full story, we'll have to wait until May 14th, when Rage 2 launches on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. For now, head on over to our preview on gamingtrend.com where I go into more depth on everything I mentioned here and more, including details on performance and DLC.